In this video, we have created the outside 2D shape that represents, if we look at our example phone, represents the outside wall of the phone case. So in this video, we're going to go from 2D to 3D and make a three-dimensional phone case. So the first thing we're going to do is take this outside curve, we're going to extrude it, and we're going to create a solid. So we need to think about the thickness of our phone, and the first thing I need to do is I need to find the product thickness. So I'm going to come down to my schematic, and in the lower left hand corner right here, again it's hard to read, but this says product thickness 7.70 millimeters. So the first thing I would think is, okay, I need to take this curve and I need to extrude it to a height of 7.7 millimeters. But if we do that, we would be forgetting that the bottom of our case here needs to have thickness. You can see it in this aperture for the opening. You gotta have thickness. And we made our wall thickness 1.25, so we're gonna make the bottom of our phone case 1.25 as well. So 7.7 plus 1.25 equals 8.95. And I'm gonna go ahead and extrude that to a thickness of 8.95. So I'm going to select my curve, I'm going to type in extrude curve, and I'm going to come to the perspective view to see this extrusion. I want to make sure it says solid equals yes, and then to be able to see it, I want to make sure I'm in the shaded view here. So in the command line, I'm going to type in 8.95 and enter. And now I have a solid object. So there's a variety of ways that we could do this. I think the easiest one is that we want to scoop out the insides of this and leave the wall thickness. And if we remember from the canoe tutorial we did together, after we made that canoe solid, to give the thickness of the walls, we used the shell command. So we're going to use shell. I'm going to type in shell in my command line. I'm going to select shell. It's going to ask me to select a face to remove, which will be the top of our phone case, and then give a wall thickness. So you can see my wall thickness is already set to 1.25. If yours isn't, you would type in 1.25 and enter. And then you're going to click on the top face of your phone case and hit enter. And voila! We have now created a three-dimensional phone case with wall thickness there. And if we come to a ghosted view, you can see we also have wall thickness at the bottom with a thickness of 1.25. So we have created a 3D object. Unfortunately, that is the easy part of this, because now, as I've said, we need to account for all of the buttons, all of the openings, and make holes for those. So we're going to do that now, and depending on how complicated you want to get on this, you have to start thinking about how many holes you want to create. I'm going to keep this simple so that the illustration doesn't take as long, and I'm going to look at the left side of my phone, on which I have my ring silent switch, my volume up and my volume down button. And I'm going to decide, instead of making individual buttons for each of these, I'm going to make one large hole to represent all of those. So what I need is I need a distance from the start of the button to the end of the button. And to do that, you can see I've pulled this part of the schematic, which is right here. I've pulled that off and I've blown it up so I can look at that individually. So let's look at that together and figure out how we're going to make this hole. The first thing we're going to do is look at a couple of these diagrammed numbers. So if you look at any of these ones, we're going to look at this one first right here that says 4.88. So if you look at the 4.88, it has an arrow pointing to a line. And you come right across from that and you'll find another arrow pointing to another line. So the 4.88 references the distance between this line, which is the bottom of your phone, and this line right here, which is the top of the ring silent switch. So we know it's 4.88 millimeters from the bottom face of the phone to the top of the ring silent switch. If you look at this one here, right here, 19.28, it is from the top edge of your phone to the first edge of the ring silent switch. Now come down here, you've got kind of a little funky set of numbers where it says you've got 4 times 5.45. So if we look at the 5.45, we follow the arrow, you can see right here it's pointing from the bottom of this button to the center point of that button. So it is saying you have 4 of these. So this is the half length of the button. We've got 2 buttons. So there's 4 halves total. So 4 distances of 5.45. All you need to know is the half length of the button is 5.45, or the full length of the button would be 5.45 plus 5.45, which would be 10.9. So now we're going to do some math. We want to know the distance from here to here. So we can see it's 47.94 from the center to the edge. We need to add 5.45 to 47.94 to get to here. So you can see over here in my notes, I've done 47.94 plus 5.45 equals 53.39. This is the length from the end of the phone, up here, to the end of the volume button, down here. So now to get the length of just the buttons, we need to subtract out the 19.28, which is right here, this distance, to be able to just find from here to here. So 53.39 minus 19.28 equals 34.11. That is the length of the hole for all 3 buttons. The width of the hole is going to be this 4.88 number here, bottom edge of the phone, to the top of the button, minus 2.82, which is right here from the bottom edge of the button to the face of the phone, and that is 2.06. So length of hole is 34.11, width of hole is 2.06. And then we need to also know the location to start that hole. So we know the location is going to start 19.28 units down, and it's going to start 2.82 units up. So with that information, we can make our first hole. I'm going to come to the right view so I can get a side view of this. And we need to orient ourselves to this view here. This corner in the bottom left, this is the bottom corner of the phone case. This corner right here is the bottom corner of the inside of the phone case, or where the corner of your phone would sit. So I'm going to give myself a temporary line to get started. I'm going to grab this polyline. I'm going to snap right here and click, and I'm going to come up 2.82. Enter. Hold my shift key, pull straight up, and click. And now I'm going to come back and look here real quick. I came up 2.82 to get to the height for the start of the hole. And now I'm going to come down 19.28. So I'm going to come back here. I'm going to go 19.28, enter, hold my shift key down and click, and I'm going to hit enter. So now this line, the end of this line gives me the starting point of my hole. So again, I'm going to grab a rounded rectangle. I'm going to snap to that end of that line I just made. And again, in my command line up here, I'm going to use relative coordinates, R. And this time my value in the X is 34.11, comma, and I'm going to come back and just double check it. So here's my 34.11 from the math we did, comma, 2.06. So I'm going to type in 2.06, enter. Now I have made this rectangle. Now you can see I can move my mouse and round over the radius here. I don't have an exact radius I want this to be, but I want it to be a small radius, so I'm just going to move my mouse until I see kind of a radius I like, and then I'm going to click. And now I have made this hole the size I need it in the place I need it. But we have to remember this hole represents the actual size of the buttons. And we want to be able to operate those buttons. So we need to make this hole just a little bit bigger. With the curve selected, I'm going to offset it. And this time, I think 1 1/4 is a little big. I'm going to come down and go about 0.75. And I think that looks pretty good. Even that it looks a little bit big to me, so I might go 0.70. And I'm going to make that. And now I can delete this inside shape. So now I've got a curve that represents where I need this hole to be and the size I need it to be. Now we need to use that to make our hole. So you can see right here, I've got this right here. I'm going to slide this out here. And now if I orient myself to this phone, it's a little bit upside down, but I'm going to make this the top of my phone and this the left side of my phone. And I'm going to use this curve to make a hole. To this point in the semester, we've been using the command Boolean difference to make holes in solids. And while that would be an option, we could extrude this and make it a solid and Boolean difference. Boolean differences tend to be very permanent and hard to change. So we are going to, with this curve here, select it, and instead of using Boolean difference, we are going to use the command make hole, because we want to make a hole. So I'm going to enter. It's going to ask me to select the surface, which is this surface. Enter. And now I just drag this through here, and you can see that has created a hole in my phone case. Now the benefit of using make hole is if you type in your command line hole, you'll see all these options you have for editing the hole that you made. So one of them is that we can move the hole if it's in the wrong spot. I can click on move hole, I can select the edge of my hole, enter, I can snap to it, pull it over, and now I've moved my hole. If you need to just get rid of a hole, if you type in hole, you can click on untrim holes. And I can click on the edge of that and it will untrim the hole. So there's a variety of options for using that hole command. Now that you've made a hole, you know how to do the rest of this phone case. You're going to need to make a hole on the bottom for your charger and your speakers. You'll probably need a hole on the side. And then most likely you'll need a hole on the back for the lens for your camera. Once you finish that, you can make your design and extrude that, and then decide if you're going to emboss it. If you're going to emboss it, you will do a Boolean difference. If you're going to engrave it, if you're going to emboss it, you'll do a Boolean union. If you're going to engrave it, you'll do a Boolean difference. And then if you're going to pursue a for, you'll start thinking about your mechanical part for the phone. So this has been an introduction on how to make holes, how to get the basic shape for your phone case. Good luck with your phone case project.